Hi there. What we're doing today is some sculpting. I think this is about my fourth attempt at sculpting a head. I'm doing a bit more comic style this time than trying to do realistic. It's a character for my upcoming webcomics, Mitsukai's Adventures. Uh, this is supposed to be a child, just codename Molly for the moment. Probably going to be somebody else, but that's what we're going to start with. Blender 2.8 beta. I think this is a release candidate 1 actually. The release candidate 2 just came out. I haven't downloaded that yet. Well, using Dynapo, of course, just to you know sculpt easier. I've already done quite a bit here, probably about a couple of hours of work already. Just trying to straighten things out and make them a bit more realistic. Not that great with lips, so we're gonna come back to that later. Kind of like the nose, kind of ended up okay. Uh, so just gonna try to straighten out here. Bottom lips usually stick out a bit, obviously. Uh, what you're seeing in the background there, I actually have a bounding box. I kind of feel that's easier to work with. Otherwise, you just get the gray background. And when I'm actually doing a 360 video, then the bounding box outside in the background there, I've got usually kind of like a purplish blue. It contrasts nicely with the actual figure. Uh, you might have seen that in another video, or I'll probably be uploading it also at the end here, adding it to this workflow. This whole video is about an hour and something, a few minutes long. I like to sculpt the inside of the mouth just to give it some depth. I'm going to retopolize everything in the end. So this is just the base sculpting to get the form, uh, like clay sculpting, really. Get the inside there. Kind of just trying to hint at some teeth. I'm not building the teeth yet. That's going to be after I've retopoed everything. That's when I'll build the teeth. This is on the inside. It kind of looks freaky. Reverse, reverse three-dimensional stuff. Always looks a bit freaky. Uh, I'm using just a mouse right now. Actually, not even a mouse. It's a trackball. Some old Microsoft trackball. Kind of like it. I used to have a really good Logitech trackball, but Logitech has been disappointing me lately with their trackballs. Most of them are kind of on top, which is not so great. The last 20 years I've been using trackballs on the side, which is the thumb. So this is all thumb. The great thing with this what is this? This is like 15-year-old Microsoft trackball. Still works perfectly well. It's got a uh, scrolly wheel, so that's great for zooming in and out, and it's got a nice click to it. It has some extra buttons on it too, like it's got two side buttons. I never use those. They're technically programmable, but I don't have it installed. I do have a Wacom, like an old bamboo tablet. Probably should get that installed. Get that, start using that. Uh, because if you look up in the top at the size strength of the tools, you actually have possibility of doing pressure sensitivity if you have like a tablet. So I really want to try that out. Just gotta go and find it and plug it in. So still playing around with the mouth here. Might be hearing some pings in the background. That's just uh, emails on my phone. Should probably silence it, but I do work kind of always on calls. I just gotta listen to certain emails. Day job is work with data, take care of databases. So this is kind of a hobby. Started learning Blender in February 2019. That's this year, actually. It's an amazing program. I what was it, in the late 80s, early 90s, I was using Sculpt 4D on the Amiga, for those who are that old and remember it. That was a pretty amazing program at the time. And I think Blender kind of has like a relationship to that in a way, from how simple certain functionalities are. And three-dimensional is not easy, and sculpting is definitely not easy. Uh, I've already spent several hundred hours just learning this over the last few months. Uh, so yeah, practice, 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 and I've barely scratched the surface of this program. Yeah, and what's amazing is that it's free, absolutely free. I did buy a version of Blender like sometime in the 90s for a project we were doing. Uh, I wasn't actually the user. I just bought it for a project that some buddies of mine and I were doing, and we had somebody which actually knew how to use three-dimensional programs really well, so he was actually using it, and now it's been free for a while. It's you know professional grade software which is free is pretty amazing. Just trying to get the details in here for the nose, because the nose always has like a little bit of a crease, and you notice that I'm always kind of using the indent tool, and then I go in and smooth. Just my workflow at the moment until I learn how to do things a little bit better. Um, I'm using 50 as resolution right now. This figure, I believe, it started off as a sphere, um, and I think it was a meter radius sphere, so it's 2 meters wide. So it's quite a large head. It's not realistic in size, so I'll have to once I actually start using it in the webcomic, I'll have to shrink it, but that will be fine. Once I retopo it will just be vectors, vertexes, I mean, and planes. So that will be resizing won't be a problem. And because this is a computer, and obviously dimensions are virtual, so we're just saying meters, but that's just numbers in the memory. It's not as if it's actually real physical dimensions. It just helps. Sometimes it helps when you're using hard, like if you're building like a building or something. It's kind of nice to be able to reference realistic dimensions. So that way you can make a door 36 inches wide. Oh, now that looks like the Joker. It's kind of unintended, but I just trying out seeing if the mouth was too small. It's a bit too small, so I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit, and then I'm gonna smooth it out there. And amazing enough, it actually right now looks freaky, but there we go. That's already better. Now let's just continue on with the chin here. Oh, took a bit too much away. Let's just add some. So sometimes I used to do a bit of clay sculpting too, so a long time ago. So I'm kind of using similar techniques here as with clay sculpting. Just add stuff and then you know kind of think of this as the wet finger technique. You just take a wet finger or wet tool and then just smooth it out. Uh, Take away some of the material. This is way less messy than sculpting with clay, obviously. So let's get rid of the hair. Which one was the hair? Really should name these. My ears, I am really bad with ears. I'm gonna have to look at some anatomical drawings again. I know this is kind of a cartoony character, but still, I'd like a relative realistic ear. So I'm just gonna try to chisel away here, go around the top, get some indents here, because ears are just kind of flaps of flesh which are attached to the side of your head. Uh, the idea is that you're supposed to catch the sound a bit easier, so they're kind of like funnels for sound. So that animals can actually wiggle their ears. Some humans can, but like my dog, you can actually see when he perks up his ears, he's trying to listen to me, especially when I'm asking him if he wants a treat or supper. It's just kind of roughing in the ear here, smoothing it out again. Probably should be using a different tool, but gotta watch more videos on how to do this. I found a great video on how to do ears. I'll link it down below afterwards. It's just some guys are just amazing, but I'm guessing they've had thousands of hours of practice compared to my maybe 100 or so. Smoothing it out here. Uh, yeah. So just maybe overdoing the smoothing a bit. What I notice with the smooth tool, sometimes it just smooths a bit too much. What it tries to do is level out the different planes. Uh, that's what actually this tool does. So it makes everything kind of the same height. You do sometimes have a little bit bump behind the ear, but it's probably a bit too much. So I'll be taking that away a bit later. Put in the crease of the ear because these, ears are pretty thin. Um, let's put in the ear hole, probably in the wrong place, but I'm just gonna guess where it is. I should really probably work off a reference material, but I'm just roughing it today. Again, because it's gonna be covered mostly with hair at the moment. Just try and get something I can use to retopo quickly afterwards. Uh, I'm pretty happy with the character up to now, so I'm probably not going to throw it away. Sometimes I just sculpt things and then throw it away. I mean, I do save them, but it's not like I'll be using them anywhere. This tool, the flat tool, is kind of, trying to understand how it works. It just flattens, seems to do a pretty good job. Um, Kind of like smooth, but not quite. I don't have too high a pressure. Trying to not take away too much detail. So the idea is usually one tries to, so you see the big triangles up in the head. What one wants to do is rough in first with a pretty low resolution. And then once you're happy with the rough, then you can do what I'm doing now, kind of start detailing with a higher resolution. Sorry about that. It's been dry here. Not much rain lately. Uh, Actually, it's pretty surprising we actually even had rain. Usually we don't get rain in the summer where I am. Kind of usually pretty much of a drought. I'm trying a little bit more Sparky type ear. Wonder if they're too big. No, looks okay. A bit of an earlobe. The pinch tool. I think this is what it's called. The pinch tool, or the grab tool. I guess it's a grab tool. It's kind of handy. You can actually do like right now I'm pushing in the side. It's pretty amazing that you can do that. It's very intuitive. Just probably can learn rough sculpting in minutes. It's the tools are most of the tools are pretty intuitive. I don't use all of them. Um, I probably should. Uh, just, I mean, why do they make so many tools? It's like uh, maybe I'm just not sculpting the type of things yet that I need the other tools. There's a really fun one which you can grab and twist things around. There's a scraper. I've used a scraper when I was roughing things out, but when I'm doing details, I prefer the indent tool. I guess it is. I'm not really sure. I should probably memorize what the names are. Uh, just trying to get the ear edge here. Oops, got a little spike there. Sometimes happens. Smoothing, smoothing, smoothing is one of my favorite tools. It's like again, wet finger technique. Uh, so maybe a short thing while I'm working on the ear here. So the webcomic, I wrote the main part of the story last November, so 2018 during NaNoWriMo. So that's November writing month, where you try to write 50,000 words at the very least during a month. And I think that's about 1,600 words a day, roughly. And some days you get your 1,600, some days you get less, some days you get more. I had one day where I had like 6,000 words just in one sitting. That was pretty amazing. Also, if you have those kind of lucky days, and if there's like uh, something that you have to take care of and don't have time to write, then you can use that uh, extra writing time that you've done before to pad. So that's practical. Because sometimes you have to go to the vet, and animal gets sick or something, or if you've got children, one of the kids might have problems in school or whatever. So yeah, NaNoWriMo, pretty amazing thing. I've done it. I've tried a few times. Last year was the first time I actually, in quotes, won. So I was able to do my 50,000 words. The actual full text, I wrote more, so I think I've got about 80,000 words. So what I did was write the comic script ahead of time. Yeah, I still have. That was the first draft, so I've still got to go back and do a second draft and fix up a lot of the dialogue because web comics are dialogue. Dog comics are dialogue. That's a lot of people actually write comics in a screenwriting format, so as if they were writing a movie. I was writing it as a book because what I want to do is at the bottom of each panel of the comics, we'll have the text for that scene or for that set of scenes. It's probably going to be in a typical 30-page type format where you have several things going on the screen, on the page. Uh, think like Marvel Comics or DC Comics, kind of that thing. Or I'm a big fan of French Belgian comics, so that kind of format with maybe bubbles and speech bubbles and things like that. But at the bottom, I want the text, and maybe eventually get somebody. I'll try to do myself, but I'm not that great a talker, as you can hear. Get to somebody to actually record the audio, so have an audiobook and a textbook and comics. We'll see what happens. That's kind of the idea. Not your standard format, obviously, but uh, and it's gonna be three-dimensional rendered because I tried to learn to draw for years. I just don't have the dexterity or patience, I guess, for doing proper drawing with pen and paper and pencil, that kind of stuff, or on the iPad. Uh, like I said, got an old Wacom bamboo. So I tried drawing. Uh, don't think I can draw the same face over and over again. Just not my temperament. Some people can do that. Blender is just amazing, so why not use it? You can sculpt your characters. We'll be rigging this eventually and using shape keys. Shape keys are pretty amazing. You can, open and close mouths, blink eyes, do eyebrow stuff, wave hair. So let's have a quick look. This is kind of crazy here. uh, just playing around with it. I might tone down the hair eventually. Now we're inside the eyeballs. Oh, I always have a bit of problem with the eyes too. There's another tutorial about eyes. I'll probably link that downstairs too in the towel section, as some people call it. Um, yeah, eyes and ears, eyes, ears, and mouths. Those are always difficult to sculpt. A lot of details. Uh, I do kind of have the form of the skull in my like mentally in my head, so I can remember where the bones are that hold in the eye. So the eye is actually lightly held in place by a ring of bone around it. So I'll have to add that on the side there a little bit, kind of missing, a bit too soft here. And yeah, just trying to get some detail here. I think I went up to 70 for resolution. Oh, lots of emails. It's that time of night again. All the servers complaining. Yeah. The eyelids are pretty thin. I mean, they have some substance to them, but they're still relative thin. So I'm just trying to get that sculpted. What I did for the eye itself, I just took a sphere, and on the top of the sphere, I just kind of modeled, just standard modeling, an iris and a pupil there. Just indented the pupil a bit, just to give it some depth and some contour. Because your pupil isn't flat. If you look at it, it's kind of a sphere with a bump on it. It's not perfect, but good enough for my use. Like I said, it's not going to be 100% realistic. It is a comics after all, so not trying to make a Final Fantasy type realistic movie by any means. And it's my indent and smooth method again here. Eyelids kind of disappear into your skull a bit, so that's what I'm trying to here hint at. Smoothing out there. I think the bridge of the nose might be a bit too small, so maybe in a later session I'll work on that, but it is a cartoonish character. I like the forehead, that looks good. The placing of the eyes is okay. It's always freaky to go inside and see the inside. Let's make the bottom eyelid a bit more, give it a bit more structure. So I'm trying to learn some of the keyboard shortcuts of Blender. There's so many. Mostly I'm using the mouse, but for moving, if you hit Shift, you pan up and down or left and right when you're holding the middle mouse button. So that's kind of handy. I just use a normal keyboard, not even backlit. It's just an old terminal keyboard that I rescued from the dump. I like it because it's not mechanical per se, but it's still got a pretty hefty thunk when you're typing, so you know that you're actually pressing the buttons. In the 80s, I learned on a mechanical keyboard, like no electricity, just really pure mechanical. And when you do that long enough, your fingers just the butterfly keyboards on the new Macs just can't stand those, or on the Dells, the small Dell laptops. Though they have no travel, and just like keyboards with travel. Uh, yeah, that's just from learning on a mechanical keyboard, or it's a mechanical typewriter actually. And yeah, somebody actually caught me the other day swatting at the upper right corner of my keyboard. I was so deep in typing that I was trying to do character turn by swatting the character turn lever. Obviously, that doesn't exist on a computer keyboard. So yeah, sometimes when I'm really deep in thought, I fall back into you know typewriter mode. It's kind of funny. It's funny how the body sometimes just doesn't want to give up. Yeah, just let's get the cheeks a little bit more. Again, oops, I just kind of overdid that, but yeah, whatever. Smoothing it out again. I bet there's a better method, but it works for me. Works for me. Just adjust the strength here. Uh, so the Wacom tablet I'll be trying out. It has 124 levels of pressure, but we'll see how that's going to work. I'll probably try that next time. Probably have to be pretty light. Yeah, I wonder if I'll have to be light or if I can just press down like I normally do. We'll see. Getting, using a large circle here, you can kind of smooth out over a bigger area. It's kind of practical because it kind of averages uh, the leveling of the planes over a bigger area. Get kind of smooths quicker. Let's get down here a bit more. And you can see the different, you can really see the difference of different type of resolutions I've been using. So this one's still 70, still stuck at 70. And the neck was, I believe, 10 when I first sculpted down there. So yeah, even the eyebrows are still 10, maybe 20. But let's get the middle of the eyebrow. Make sure the forehead is a bit flat. Play around here with the eyebrow. Oops, yeah, just had to correct something there. Let's reduce the strength. Just want to hint at the forehead above the eyebrows. There we go. And I think the nose was done with 50. That's why it looks a bit, so still a bit pixelated. It's not so important. What in the end we're going to retopo. So I had symmetry turned off. That's why this side looks a bit weirder. Uh, so this ear is not important. I'm going to be retopping only on one side, so I'll probably be retopping on the right side of this figure, and then this ear will be automatically corrected afterwards. Yeah, I messed up here. Probably had symmetry turned off for a bit. That's always a danger. Oh yeah, I was doing the hair. That's why I turned off symmetry because I sculpted the hair the other day, and Blender does remember your last settings. It saves it with the file. Let's get the nose a bit more evened out. It's getting late here. Sorry. Still got quite a bit to do here. Just gonna tweak the nose a bit. Um, Gonna hint at the cartilage. Uh, Oops, scrolled in too much. Just get the lips. Let's work a bit on the lips again. I kind of jump around as you see. Sculpting on the inside, smoothing on the inside. What that does kind of, you know, gets the lips to drop down a bit. Let's see, what can we do here? That cheekbone looks good. Ear looks okay for what I want right now. Not perfect by far. My scroll bar, my scroll wheel is sometimes a bit too active. Let's see. This eyelid is a bit. Just trying to figure out what to do here. It's not. Something's off here. Trying to get an angle here to look at it. When you've got something physical in your hands, like when you're sculpting clay, you can turn it easier and you can kind of get a more three-dimensional feel. But I'm working on a two-dimensional screen, so I'm not using VR or anything. So that's why I'm constantly moving to kind of trick my brain into thinking it actually is three-dimensional. Because your brain does, it will take it to them. I mean, your eyes, you do have two, so you kind of see everything a bit offset with one eye compared to the other. So your brain, I mean, each eye itself only sees two-dimensional anyhow, but your brain kind of can stitch it together, and then actually you think you're seeing three-dimensional. So that's why I move things back and forth. Sometimes I just wiggle it back and forth. It's also why sometimes when you watch artists draw, they sometimes horizontally flip their image just to be able to see it at a different angle, just to get the brain to stop seeing. It's kind of breaking the cache in your brain, so to speak. So you actually refresh what you're seeing. It's just kind of trying to kind of weird to model on the inside, but when I'm retopping, I want to be able to retop the lid, so I need to get into it, and that's why I'm kind of building a inside eyeball. Nobody's ever going to see it, obviously, unless I have a character which loses an eye, which in my comics is not going to happen. It's not one of those. Uh, there's not going to be much brutality at all. It's supposed to be more for all ages. It's you know, uh, I'm I'm a fan of Adele Blanc-Sec. That's a French comics series from, I guess, I think it started in the 70s. I'm not even sure if anybody still is drawing that. There is a bit of more brutality in there than even I'm going to have, but it's still pretty low key. Uh, some people get shot. That's about it. There's some monsters in there too. Fantastical creatures. There was a great movie, Adele Blanc-Sec, which came out a few years ago. Oh, absolutely great. I loved it. Very true to the actual comics. Amazing enough. It's different. It's just related to the comics, but it's not a story. It's not a one-to-one story, obviously. In the movie, Adele Blanc-Sec's trying to save her sister, which had a horrible accident and got a pin stuck in her brain. Uh, so that never happened in the comics. I don't even think she has a sister in the comics. So that's one of my influences on the book. Adams Family, the Charles Adams dark humor comics, which he used to draw. Often with no words at all. That's also a influence of my webcomics, and of course the Adams series from the 60s and the revised edition. I kind of like both. So they actually filmed all the series for the Adams Family. I think it was in the 90s. Uh, great job, great job. Of course, there was the movies. The movies were kind of a bit. Mm, I don't know. Some of them are pretty good. Like I like the one with Tim Curry. Uh, but they kind of retcon some of the things. Kind of weird. Uh, took some liberties with the original material. I mean, even the original series took some liberties, but it was amazingly true. I mean, Morticia and Gomez Adams in the first series was just amazing. Uh, yeah, it's looking not bad. Kind of funky hair. Let's do a little body. Just start off with that. I'll have to look up how to do body a bit better, but let's just rough out some more here, just to make it easier to work with later. Uh, just smooth out the top here a little bit, just to get started. Just get a rough shape, and I think I'm gonna add some arms. Neck looks a bit skinny, so I'll have to go revisit that in a minute. Just gonna this tool here, just resolutions things. So, but I'm just gonna use a smooth tool. It's easier. Using very low strength, so it's not really doing anything. It's just splitting up the faces a bit, just in preparation for the following work that I'm about to do. Cheeky little devil here. So put in some muscles, get the collarbones in. Always love some collarbones. And smooth out again. Just get a bit more strength here. Others will be at it all day. It's already a long enough video as it is. Those are the muscles on the side of the neck, collarbones. There we go. They don't have to be too prominent. I just want to have them a bit there so that I know where the body is. Let's get the shoulders down. Yeah, let's try this. This is pretty cool. If you zoom out, then it actually, this is the grab tool again. One has to do it in small steps because it just gets, otherwise it makes a point really quickly, like there. So one has to, what I do is click, drag, so I don't actually just click and hold and drag. So I'm going to just move out the back a bit. Start modeling here. Careful not to take away too much. I'm trying to leave the spinal column a little bit. Add some clay here. Kind of looks freaky. Keep smoothing out, keep smoothing out. Clay, smooth out. It's kind of the method to use. Kind of get the idea there. And I'm not using a reference. Again, I'm just doing this pure from memory, so that's why it's taking a bit. Maybe if I'd use a reference, it goes a bit faster, but just trying to build it up here. Bit of a chest. And because I'm using symmetry, I only have to do one side, obviously. That's kind of practical. You can do symmetry in all kind of axes. It's kind of, usually I just use the x-axis symmetry, but it's pretty amazing what you can all do. I haven't even tried out half the functions. If you look over to the right side, you can see the symmetry menu open. So a lot of options there. I have no idea what most of those do. So Blender has brought out, like Blender Foundation themselves, they've brought out some videos on 2.8, so I'll have to watch those. Lots of tips and tricks and just basic things which I definitely missed when I was just clicking through. Uh, this is the muscles in the front, just adding them. Not, they're not so prominent on a child, obviously, but they are there, so gotta add them. Smooth it out. There's no Adam's apple or even indentation on a child, so yeah, not looking too bad. Let's get rid of the hair and start working on the back of the skull a little bit. This was fully roughed out, so just trying to get a bit more. I know probably never will see it, but if this works out, I might just use this as a template for another character or two, and then just tweak things. Um, I've got just trying to think. I've got about 20, 30 characters right now in the comics. So there's a lot of modeling which I'll have to do. I'm going to cheat for some of the background characters, which Blender. There's a plugin, MB Lab, which an Italian fellow created way back when. No longer supports it, but somebody still does on GitHub, I think. And there's a 2.8 version, and I've got it installed. It's just a plugin which makes fully rigged humans, and you can adjust for ethnicity, size, body type, gender, all kind of fun stuff. And a really quick thing to get just you know uh, random people in your scene uh, instead of having to sculpt them. But the main characters, like the ones which actually have speech lines, I'm going to be doing those like this. I'm not going to use MB Lab for those. But if I want a crowd or something, then I'll just create a whole bunch with MB Lab. Let's do the spine here, shoulder blade, little shoulder blade. Probably a bit too low, but I'm gonna just rough it in for now. Just get some ideas. Uh, Shoulder muscles. Again, no reference whatsoever. Just doing this out of memory, just because I feel like it today. It's sometimes good to just practice without reference, because then you'll kind of get a feeling what you're not understanding when it comes to anatomy. It's like, okay, back of the skull, gotta look that up again, gotta memorize it. Shoulder blades, gotta find out where they actually are. I think they're higher. I put them too low here. Collarbones, I think, are not bad. Pop in the hair just to have a look. I know, crazy hair. I'm gonna reduce it a bit, but it's kind of the feeling I want to give, of crazy hair. Let's see. I'm not modeling the hair. I'm just popping it in for reference. Get the eyebrow a bit more. Want a bit more prominent. Because your eyebrow is a bit, if you actually notice and feel it, it's a bit fleshier than it's than the rest of your forehead, obviously. So, gotta try to hint that here. It's probably a bit more fat inside the eyebrows, actually. I'm guessing that's what gives them a bit more body. And yeah, the eyebrows themselves don't actually have muscles, but the muscles do around the face do pull on the eyebrows. Pretty dry today. It's dry and damp at the same time. That's weird. Smooth out, not too much pressure. At the very beginning, when I was starting, like the first model I did way back when, I didn't realize that the strength of the tools made a difference. I only discovered that like on the second model I was doing. So I was just tapping away very lightly and undoing the taps constantly. It's like, actually, you can just do very smooth, very, very light. Let's get in that bone I forgot, which I mentioned, because that's what kind of keeps the eyeball in. Your eyeball isn't technically trapped into your head. You can pop it out. Like if you hit your forehead against something really hard, your eyes can pop out in the worst case. Uh, and there's some medical conditions where your eyes kind of can, not to be too morbid, pop out of your head. So, but in most cases, the side of the bone here, the side of your skull, does try to keep it in. Bit more of the neck. Yeah, looking good. Again, not perfect, but what do you expect after 100, 200 hours? Not too happy with the cheek yet. He's supposed to be a cheeky person, so I want some cheeks, but I got a bump there. Not sure how I got that. That's smooth out a bit more. Now the thing is, even though I'm going to be retopping it with way less verts and way less faces, it's still important to kind of get the details here right, because uh, where you'll see later once I retop and record that, uh, when you snap the planes to this object, and so you want some detail because you don't actually know where you're snapping to uh, at the beginning. So you do want this as close to what you in the end want as possible, if that makes sense. And you depending on around the mouth and eyes, you're probably gonna have more faces and like more planes. Then on the forehead or on the neck, you can just do huge quads, and a quad is just a square, obviously. It's four vertices which define a face. Uh, and the reason one uses quads, like squares, for retopologing is when you animate it just looks better. If you would export to a 3D printer or to a game, I believe you have to use triangles. And here, when we're sculpting, we're actually using triangles too, as you can see. These are all tiny triangles. But when you're retopoing, you do that with squares. Just makes the animation easier. Because the deformation of a square is easier to calculate, I guess, for for the softer than triangles. Let's get the lip a bit thicker. I'm trying to get the lip angle correct. Oh, that's a bit too much. But I'm going to fix that in a second. Because lips have kind of, if you look at a lip uh, on somebody else, you can kind of see it has certain angles, certain planes. And again, just doing this rough, no reference right now, just trying to do it out of memory. What memory I have. Define a bit more chin. There we go, just smooth. Just gives a little bit more chin there. Yeah, just gives a bump. Just a small bump. Yeah, that's back to the lip. Trying, keep destroying and keep rebuilding. Just trying here. Just gonna dot, dot, dot. So what I'm doing, I'm tapping. I'm not actually pulling. Just filling up a little bit, trying to get the right angle. I gotta watch some more videos on how people do that. There's so many good videos out there. Doesn't even have to be Blender videos. So there's a lot of other 3D tools that people use, which they all kind of work the same. So that's, starting to get the angle right. Not quite happy with it. Let's see if I can pull it down here inside. Not really working too well. Oop, got some in the background there, inside the mouth. That seems to work better. It's kind of funny that, I'm pulling down and actually realize what I'm trying to do. So, trying to get the plane here. Smooth out again. Let's try the flat tool again. Let's see if that does what I think it does. Yeah, actually, you know what? If I got the angle of the head the right way, let's add a little bit to the bottom. I need some material to work with, obviously. Let's try that again. I'm trying to get a plane which is around 45 degrees angle, because the top lip kind of is like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm getting there. Look at that. Smooth that out a little bit. Do the flat plane. It's getting there. Just very lightly. Yeah, I'm kind of starting to like that. Got the lip sticking out, the bottom lip is sticking out a bit more. Kind of like that. That's, cheeky, rebellious. Kind of a, I don't care. You don't tell me what to do. I'm my own boss kind of flip. Nose needs a bit work. Just very lightly there. Give a crease. Oh, this thing has a name in between the lips. I never can remember what it is though. Let's dig into the nose a bit more. So I'm not actually trying to go too much in, but you do have to go a bit in for the shadows, because you do, depending on how the head is going to be shown, it will be kind of obvious if there's a real nostril or not. So just trying to build some in here. Again, your nose on the nose flaps are relative thin, but they've got some lumpy parts. There's no cartilage on the side, but the cartilage is in the middle of your nose, obviously. So inside, but not the actual nose flaps. That's what the names are. The nostrils. There we go. Nostrils on the outside. They're just pieces of flesh, bit fatty flesh. There we go. Starting to look good. See what else can we do? tweak the eye a bit. I know it looks a bit rough, but again, not so important. Mostly just need the shape. Dum-dum-dum. Just add a little bit, because, you know, the bottom lid has a bit of material to it. And smooth out again. Just very lightly. Trying to get the top here, but not too much. Yeah, we're starting to come together. That's yeah, okay. Again, turning, just to trick my brain into thinking it actually is a real three-dimensional object. Flip it around. Have a look here. Let's save. You know, it does. Blender does do some auto save, but you know, always save every so often. So I'm going to call this retopo because I think I'm ready for retopologing this thing, and I think we're done. Thanks for watching.